Hey there, Heather Ho there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to yet another Cutter Top 10 FIFA World Cup video. And today we're going to be looking at the top 10 tournaments of all time as we begin the 2026 World Cup, the second time ever that a World Cup will have two or more nations actually hosting them, and in this case, three, with Canada, US, and Mexico hosting a World Cup. This will be the second World Cup the US has hosted, Mexico's third, and Canada its maiden voyage. Hopefully the matches in Canada will be just as good, and Canada can get into the knockout stages. I know it's a 32 team knockout stage instead of 16 because of the whole 48 team thing, but Canada's got a chance. They can't fuck this up. All right, so let's begin our countdown. Number 10 is the first World Cup I kind of watched from start to finish, 2006, Germany. I got glimpses of the 98 and 2002 World Cup through CBC, but 2006 was different. TSN, Sportsnet, and CBC would have the action. So being with cable and being in a position I can watch the World Cup during the summer of 2006, I was happy and all that. Germany beat Costa Rica in a very tight first match, 4-2. 2006 had some strong football and all that. The group stages, there weren't too many massive moves except for Australia beating Japan and then moving on to the World Cup. Knockout stages. In the knockout stages, Australia controversially lost to Italy because of a penalty that should not have been a penalty and all that. England, my England team fell to Portugal in the quarterfinals because CR7 got Wayne Rooney sent off. Wayne Rooney was going to get a yellow card for stomping on the tender fiddles of the Portuguese player. Yeah, but CR7 had his things, and with the wink, it brutalized everything. Italy and Germany had a great semifinal, which Italy shocked the host Germans. Then France would play Italy in the final. Zidane made a penalty shot, and then Materazzi scored. And strangely enough, those two bumped into each other at the end. And unfortunately, though, Materazzi wanted the horror of Zidane, that was Zidane's sister or mother. Zidane headbutted him in the chest, got himself red carded, and the penalty shootout saw Italy win, despite the fact that Italy had their own domestic problems with the corruption scandal. Number 9 is South Africa, 2010. This is big because, you got to have a World Cup in Africa and all that. They never did. In 2010, they had said only countries that were from Africa could, but, and they bid on Morocco, Egypt, and South Africa, which South Africa won. So that was big for South Africa to win the the bid for the World Cup. They got to be placed with Mexico, France, and Uruguay. They didn't get out of the group. For the first time, a World Cup host failed to make the group, out of the group, and all that. They did beat France and put France into a deep depression, if you will. 2010 is also known as Italy given a softball of a league of a group to make it to the knockout stages, and they couldn't even do it. They only scored 2 points. They couldn't even freaking beat New Zealand. They tied them, but they couldn't beat them. 2010, of course, is famous for Frank Lampard scoring against Germany, or he thought he scored against Germany, but the ball was way over the line and all that, and the referees missed it. Some say it was revenge for 1966. Ghana was the only African team to make the knockout stages. They got to the quarters against Uruguay, where it looked like they were going to make the World Cup semifinals for the first time as an African nation. One problem, though. Even though Luis Suarez got red carded for having the ball, swatting the ball with his hand, even though goalies are the only team players to do that. Ghana missed the assuming penalty, and then, they faltered. Spain would take on Holland in a not so great final because Holland's De Jong with the kung fu kick. Spain won on a late goal. Number 8 is the only other World Cup that has been hosted by two nations, and that's South Korea, Japan, 2002. Both nations didn't have a strong bid for the World Cup, and Asia needed to host one for the first time. So South Korea and Japan combined their bid and hosted it. 4 groups in Korea, 4 groups in Japan, and they would have to go share knockout matches. It was a novelty. There was big and all that. The group stage. The big thing for the group stage was France being the world champs, given a group of Senegal, Uruguay, and Denmark, and expected to get to the top two, but they fell on the first day to Senegal. Booba Dub is there, and Booba Dub is there. After half an hour of play, Papa Booba Dub, as John Motson would famously cry out when Senegal beat Brazil. Senegal beat France. What am I thinking? France didn't make it out of the group, and they became the first country to have the what they call the Champions Curse that happened till 2018 with the defending champs and all that. Anyway, it was a good knockout stages. The only World Cup the second and only World Cup to get the golden goal, first extra time goal scored. Senegal beat Sweden on that rule, but then they lost to Turkey on that rule. Of course, we all know about South Korea with the whole controversy about making it to the semifinals because of them being alien in Spain, which is one thing, but with the controversies going on with bad calls and all that, it was tainted. Korea lost to Turkey in the third place game. Brazil with Ronaldo, after his epileptic fit cost Brazil the 98 World Cup, he got his happy ending, scoring twice against Oli Kahn in Germany. And that was just impressive. Number 7 is the only time the Americans hosted the World Cup, 1994. It was known for the globalization of football and drew enormous crowds. Well, the U.S. had a lot of football stadiums, beach soccer stadiums. That's why their attendance was so high. But of course, it was controversial because the Americans didn't have a professional league. The North American Soccer League had basically vanished by 1984. However, they made a thing for 1996, Major League Soccer and all that. The group stages served some humble pie with Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, as I should really call them, beat Italy 1-0. And all that. Of course, the problem was Romania. Colombia was looking like they were supposed to be world beaters. They did beat Argentina 5-0 in Argentina in the qualifying. Unfortunately, though, they fell flat on their faces, and of course, Andres Escobar's own goal screwed over the Colombians, and then he got shot while the tournament was still going on. The Americans got through to the round of 16, got knocked out by Brazil, and Tab Ramos got knocked out literally by Leonardo, who got a massive 8-game suspension out of it. Bulgaria shocked the world by putting up a quarterfinals win over Germany. Sweden would end up beating Bulgaria for third place, but yeah, Sweden getting to the semifinals was a massive run. Italy actually was nearly done for. They lost to Ireland in the group stages, and they were nearly about to lose to Nigeria in the round of 16, but Roberto Baggio saved their butts, getting them through the quarters, to semis, and then to the finals against Brazil, which had a penalty shootout. But unfortunately, Baggio skied his over the net, and Brazil won the title. A lot of people hated on Baggio because of him being Buddhist, ponytail, in a predominantly Catholic country. I say bullshit. I mean, without Baggio, Italy would not have gotten that far. Number 6 is Switzerland, 1954. It actually has the record for being the highest scoring World Cup by average goals per match. Like, there were many matches that had like 2 or 3 goals. Well, there was that one quarterfinal between Austria and Switzerland that ended up 7-5 for the Austrians. So, anyway, that was big and all that. 1954 was known for Scotland thinking how cold Switzerland was going to be, wearing those thick jerseys. But the joke was on them. Switzerland was a warm country, and temperatures almost in the triple digits. Fahrenheit, of course. We saw the final between West Germany and Hungary. The magical Magyars were up 2-0, but West Germany scored 3 goals in what they called the miracle of Bern. So that was just magical and all that. Also to note, West Germany in 1974 saw another favorite, the Total Football Dutch, lose in the final to West Germany. So that was big. Number 5 is France, 1998. It was the modern World Cup era. From 24 teams to 32. So 8 groups of 4, top 2 move on. No third place bullshit. It was pretty impressive. France had the good stadiums and all that. There were a few group stage shocks. There was the fact that Iran and the U.S. were drawn into the same World Cup group despite all the massive tensions. And this is 1998, mind you. England got through, and then the knockout stages happened in the round of 16. France beat Paraguay on a golden goal, and England lost to Argentina, even though Michael Owen had a wonderful goal. The only problem with Michael Owen's thing was that David Beckham got in trouble for his petulant flick on Diego Simeone. That should have been a yellow card instead of a red card. Beckham was not around for England. They had to go 2 penalties. They actually had a goal called back in extra time, which they thought Sol Campbell had been the hero, but nope, because of a foul in the box. So England lost on penalties as per usual. Croatia shocked the world. Their first cup as an independent nation outside of Yugoslavia. They got to the fourth. They got to the top four. They lost to Holland. No, they beat Holland for third place. David Suker was named goal scorer of the tournament, and we can't forget about the Frank de Boer to Dennis Bergkamp goal. The Dutch commentary just going bonkers after beating Argentina. France would win on home turf against Brazil in the final, despite Laurent Blanc being sent off in the semifinal for a stupid foul on the Croatian player who basically dove. So France beat Brazil, but Brazil unfortunately had no Ronaldo. He was not fit enough. He had what they called an epileptic fit in the hotel and still played. Although Brazil, I think Nike put pressure on Brazil to put him on the team sheet. Number 4 is Brazil 2014. Yeah, we all know about how it ended for the home nation and all that. But it was a pretty good tournament. It was dramatic. I mean, Costa Rica were put in the group of death of Italy, Uruguay, and England, all former World Cup winners. And somehow, in some freaking way, Costa Rica got top 2. They were behind Uruguay, but who cares? Italy and England were both knocked out. Holland got revenge on Spain for the 2010 final as they were drawn in the same group. The Dutch beat the Spaniards 5-1 and sent them out of the World Cup, if you will. The Dutch got to the semifinals, losing to Argentina, if memory serves me right. A lot of group stage argy bargy. There were some great round of 16 matchups in the knockout stages. Quarterfinals were big. Well, round of 16, Colombia versus Uruguay, when Jaime Rodriguez put in that great volley into the net. Brazil had troubles in the semifinals against Germany, only because Neymar, their main goal scorer, got kneed in the back by the Colombian player, and Thiago Silva, their captain, was red carded, so he couldn't play. Germany was up 5-0 before you knew it, before you blinked, and Brazil were out. They lost to the Dutch for third place. They basically weren't playing for anything. And then Germany beat Argentina late in extra time for the winning shot. And I knew Brazilians would not want Argentina to win a championship on their turf. Of course, missing the cut was Brazil 1950, because that was dramatic, especially Uruguay versus Brazil in the final that saw Gigia and Schiavone do something that only 2 people have done, and that was the Pope and Frank Sinatra. Silence the Maracana. And of course, that's when the US beat England 1-0, but they didn't make the cut. Number 3 is the last World Cup, 2022 Qatar. Yeah, we all know the controversy of Qatar hosting the World Cup in the first place. But it was dramatic and all that. I know you could say recency bias, but it was pretty good. Group stages were good. Canada was grouped with Belgium, Croatia, and Morocco. Morocco shocked everyone by making it out of the group stage, making it to the knockout stages alongside Croatia. Belgium underachieved at a World Cup almost every time. Again, and Canada just had nothing. It was massive and all that. Morocco made a massive run to the Final Four, becoming the first African nation to do so. They beat Spain and Portugal on penalties. They gave up no goals, which meant that their last game against Canada in the group stage, that was the last time they gave up a goal in open play, was Canada, of all teams. But Morocco lost the semis and third place, which is fine. And then, of course, the final. It was one of the greatest finals of all time. Argentina, France, 3-3 final. And then they had to go to penalties. Argentina winning. Messi finally getting his career story. And he is back for 2026 because Argentina is defending. Number 2 is Mexico, 1986. Yeah, I know. Everything knows 1986 was the hand of God goal. And that's all it's known for. But it was actually pretty impressive. The 86 World Cup came back to Mexico. Mexico made an inspired run to the knockout stages, beat Bulgaria in the round of 16 thanks to Negretti's spider kick goal, if you will. Canada got in to the 86 World Cup, they were expected to get their butts handed to them by France, Hungary, and the Soviets. Yes, they lost all 3 games, but they only gave up 5 goals. What's even more crazy is they gave up 2 to Hungary and the Russians, but one, only one, to the French, who Brazil beat in the playoffs, I think. Or did France beat Brazil? I think, yeah, France beat Brazil, which was shocking in the playoffs. England had their own problems. They lost to Portugal in the first game and finally eked out a trip. I think they were third place or something. But yeah, they beat Paraguay. They faced Argentina in the Hand of God game. And it had to be controversial because Maradona is 5'6" and Shilton's 6'1". And Maradona punched the ball over Shilton. His second goal when he went through the English defense with 11 touches in 11 seconds, that's a thing of beauty. I'll just say that. But Argentina got to the final against West Germany, up 2-0, then ended up being 2-2, and then thankfully Argentina won 3-2. Valdano, the hero. And number one is also Mexico, 1970. This was iconic. It was the first World Cup in color for color TV and all that. Yeah, the TV coverage was there, but now it's in color. So you could see the yellows of Brazil, the reds of England, and the uh, blues of Italia. So it was a great group stage and all that. Brazil and England bumped into each other in the group stages, and Pele thought he scored on Gordon Banks, but Gordon Banks flipped the ball over the net. Although Jairzinho did score for Brazil to beat England. England got to the quarterfinals. Were supposed to beat West Germany, and like they defended their title. They're up 2-0. They made a few bad decisions to sub off people, anticipating the semifinal, and then West Germany scored twice in regulation and once in overtime, extra time. It doesn't help that Gordon Banks, the main goalie for England, was not there. He had a case of Mexican tummy, and Peter Bonetti came in and ruined it. But, it could have been different. Italy and Germany played one of the greatest games ever. They say it's the game of the century, was Italy West Germany in the semifinals. That's lots of action, including in extra time. Italy nipping the Germans 4-3. Get to the final, losing 4-1 to Brazil, thanks to Pele's last great international performance. So take it as you will. That was one of the best World Cups of all time. And Pele and the team goal 1970 cannot be denied. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond. Do